Hey there, I just wanted to jump in before we start this episode and let you know that this episode does contain a very sensitive topic, and we do dive into some medical details that might be uncomfortable for some audiences. So, listener discretion is advised. Hello, DBE. Welcome back to the show. Today's episode is a little bit different. So, I'm coming to you with part 2 of The Truth Behind the Camera. So, this is a little 3-part series that I've been doing, sharing the story of Instagram versus my reality and what we've been going through the past month and change. And so part 2 is going to be a little bit different than part 1. If you didn't listen to part 1 yet, I would encourage you to do so. It will give you some context around everything that I'm talking about. But I will also say that there is a trigger warning here, as it may trigger you, and what we've gone through. I will try my best not to cry. I think in this episode, I shouldn't cry. I probably won't, because it's a little bit more exciting. This is the spiritual part. This is the universal part. This is the really bizarre part that just makes you think, wow, we really are all connected in another way. So whether you believe in God, Buddha, Allah, the universe, spirit, whatever it might be, I don't know if you can resonate with everything I'm saying, but I would encourage you to just listen to this episode with an open heart and an open mind and a little bit of curiosity. So I'm going to dive in. Part 1 was all about what we went through. And Mike and I recently went through an ectopic pregnancy that resulted in surgery, emergency surgery, the removal of our baby and my right fallopian tube. And so that happened on September 17th and was extremely traumatic and totally unexpected. After that, we had a trip booked for months, and this was something that we were looking forward to for so long. And at the time of this emergency surgery, we were 2 weeks out from our trip. So September 17th was the surgery, and October 1st, we were supposed to be getting on an airplane. But the last day in September, Friday, the day before we flew, was going to be my post-op appointment. And we were going to find out if I was cleared to fly or not. So long story short, I got cleared to fly, which was so exciting. And I decided that emotionally, I felt like it was the best decision for me. Physically, I was keeping my fingers crossed that it wouldn't be too painful. So that Saturday morning, we flew to Montana. And one of the activities that we were doing in Montana was the girls had a spa day one of the days, and the guys were going fishing. And I didn't book a spa appointment. I didn't book one because I didn't know if I'd be able to go. And it was a super small spa, and they only had a certain amount of appointments. So we all went. I think there were 7 of us girls, and all 6 of the other girls had appointments. So I just did like a day pass, and I was hanging out with everybody as they were kind of coming and going into their massages. And we were all just hanging out. So all of the girls that were there had booked a 60-minute massage. And my girlfriend, Aisha, who a lot of you are familiar with, she's been on the show, she's incredible. She had booked a 2-hour intuitive healing session, which the funny thing was none of us had even seen that on the menu. And so all 6 girls went, and she was the very last session to go. She was the last person. She was going to go into the room, and when she was done, we were going to leave. And so we were all just hanging out like we had been, having some snacks sitting around the fire. And her intuitive healer came back into our room where we were hanging out after Aisha had gone into the service room. And he came into the room with the most magnetic and just beautiful energy. Like you could feel this man floating into the room. And he came in, and in his thick accent, he said, "Jessica." I looked over at, yeah, that's me. He said, "Aisha decided that she wanted to gift you half of her session." Now, what I didn't tell you was when we got into the spa that day, I asked them if they had any availability just for a facial so that I could get something, but I knew I couldn't get a massage, and they unfortunately had nothing available. They couldn't do any treatment. They had nothing available. So I just sat with it, and I was like, okay, that's fine. I'm not meant to get a treatment today. So he comes back into the room, and he offers this half session from Aisha. Mind you, she's not in the room. She's over in her massage room. She's not near us. And so immediately I just started crying because I just felt seen. I felt cared for. I felt thought of. And I had just had such a tough 2 weeks leading up to it. 2 weeks that I didn't even know that I would be able to be there or that I should be there. And to feel that seen and that thought of was just super emotional for me. So I started crying, and I couldn't even get the words out to answer him because he was asking if I'd be interested. And so one of the other gals said, "Yes, that's a yes, she's interested." When I went into the room, he sat with me for a moment, and remember, this is an intuitive healing session. This is not a massage. So he reads into your energy and decides what type of session he's going to give you. Is it a massage? Is it Reiki? Is it sacral cranial? Is it whatever he decides? And so we were sitting in the room chatting, and he knew nothing of what had happened. And he said, I'm feeling like I want to do a mixture of a little bit of massage, a little bit of Reiki, and some energy healing with sacrocranial massage. I said, okay, that sounds great. And as he went to leave the room for me to get undressed, I asked him, is it okay if I lay on my back? Because I just knew that it wasn't going to be comfortable to lay on my stomach, and I didn't want to have any work done that could aggravate any of the incision sites. So I said, is it okay if I lay on my back? He said, absolutely. When he came back into the room, he had me take a couple deep breaths, and he sort of put me into a meditative state to bring me down into theta. And so he walked me through a visualization, and it was incredible. And, I had an eye mask on, and you could just feel his energy. When he would breathe, I could feel his energy. And so we were doing this sort of energetic breath work together to drop me into this meditation. And once we did, he then put his hands over my body, a couple inches over my body, scanning from my head all the way down to my toes, sort of feeling the energy in my body through Reiki. So if you've never done Reiki, they typically don't have their hands on you. They'll have their hands around or over you oftentimes. And so he sort of scanned from head to toe, his two hands over my entire body. And he came back up from my feet to go back up to my head, and he stopped right over my abdomen. And again, I had not told him anything. He took a couple deep breaths there, and I could actually feel energy. I know I might sound like a crazy person, but also maybe you've experienced this before. It felt like energy pulsating from my abdomen up to his hands and back. Like he was almost like pulling stuff out of my stomach, but he wasn't actually touching me. And he stopped over my abdomen, and he said, today I want to focus on one thought. And I want to focus on the thought of, it's not your fault. I want to focus on the thought of compassion and forgiveness. Are you open to that? So I immediately started crying, and he prompted me, it's okay. This is safe. You're allowed to cry. In fact, I want you to cry, because if you don't, the tears that you hold back are what become sickness in the body. And so I'm laying there with an eye mask on, and tears are just streaming down the sides of my face into my ears, like literally collecting in my ears. And he was just holding the energy, holding the space over my abdomen. It's not your fault. It's okay to forgive. You didn't do anything wrong. Compassion and self-love. He then proceeded to walk me through further meditations, and he had me working through chakras, and he chose the heart chakra, and the heart chakra is the color green. And so he had me visualizing and meditating through the color green, and I'm wearing green, and I'm swimming through green, and everything is green, and we're focusing on self-love, which for me has been a battle for 38 years. And all of these things combined were just extremely overwhelming for me. And I got to a place very quickly where I was resisting wanting to do this. I'm sure you can resonate with this, where I'm like, I don't want to do this right now. Come on. Like, my girlfriends are here. I'm supposed to just come in and get a massage and then leave. Like, I don't want to go here. I don't want to do the deep work. I don't want to. But I also knew that it wasn't even that I had to, it was that I got to. And this stranger, this man who knew nothing about what was going on, was holding space for me to feel all the things. Because if you listen to episode 1, I was feeling what was going on the previous 2 weeks, but we also had decided to move forward with our launch. And so as much as I was feeling, I was also bypassing, I was suppressing a little bit, distracting myself a little bit. And so I was allowing myself to feel. So we had this incredible session. And afterwards, he asked me if I would be open to kind of like unpacking some of the stuff that he had come through, some of his downloads. And so he asked if I'd be open to sharing what had happened, because he felt pain and he felt trauma, and he felt that there was something happening within me. And so I shared with him that 2 weeks earlier, 2 weeks almost to the day, I had lost a baby, and I had emergency surgery, and there was a lot of trauma. And I was holding on, and I still am, to anger and resentment and frustration and sort of this victim mentality that I've never experienced before of, why me? It's not fair. I didn't deserve this. And then moving through the emotions of grief and loss of what could have been, and feeling responsible, which I consciously know is not true. It's not my fault. I'm not broken. But all these emotions that are coming up. And so I started to tell him about all these things. And he said, I know, I could feel it. I could feel the trauma. I could feel how much energy of your own body was being just pushed into your abdomen area, your stomach, your uterus, like the tubes, the ovaries, like literally the 3 scars that I have physically. I still, recording this episode, still have stitches that have not dissolved externally as well as internally. And so for him to feel that, it was just another moment of feeling really seen. And so he walked me through some of what he was downloading, and I'm not going to share everything with you because it's for me. But he did ask if I believe in star seeds. And so star seeds are said to be like advanced spiritual beings that are coming from a previous lifetime from the star system, and they're being reincarnated into a current star system now. And there's these soul contracts that people believe, and I believe, and that's why I'm sharing these soul contracts that are based on the notion that that reincarnation of this soul is coming into a new body to correspond with other souls, to teach lessons, to meet or re-meet with other souls on the 3D human level. And so he was asking me, and you can do further research on that, and it has to do with spirituality, and there's some science and astrology and all those things combined. So he told me that he believes in star seeds, and he believed that this star seed, we'll call it, our baby, for lack of a better term, had a contract. And despite it feeling like it wasn't fulfilled on my end of things, right? Because like it never came to be, he was explaining how star seeds and soul contracts sometimes are just here for a couple hours, a couple days, a couple weeks, a couple months, and that star seed, that soul contract actually did live out its full contract. And that if I could surrender and trust that that is true, that I will see in the future moments, times, blips, just tiny glimmers of what that contract was here to do and to teach me, as well as others around me, Mike, our family, so on and so forth. And so I sort of have been holding on to that, but not in a strangulation way of like, what does it mean? I have to make it mean something. Why did this happen to me? What's the lesson? And I think for me, one of the biggest lessons, which part 3 is going to be all about the lessons, I think one of the biggest lessons for me is that letting go of not strangulating and trying to figure it out right now. And what is the meaning? And also humans are meaning making machines. And so we could make anything mean whatever we want it to. And the meaning that we give it is often the thing that allows us the peace of mind, the freedom, the ease, the surrender comes from the meaning. And so I really, truly have just been letting it float. So the story is going to continue on because there have been many other moments in the past 2 weeks, 3 weeks now that I've been back from that trip, that things have happened. So after you get a massage, oftentimes they meet you in the hallway with a glass of water. They tell you to drink your water and how did it feel and all of that. So he met me in the hallway after, and he asked, how was I feeling? And I was wiping the tears away from my face. And I took the water, and I just told him that I felt seen and held and appreciated. And I have got lots of work that I get to do. And I'm so grateful for how everything turned out. While I have so much anger and frustration, I'm just still so grateful. There's so many silver linings to how our experience with this ectopic had gone down. It could have been so much worse. And so as we're walking around the hallway to bring me back into the room where all the girls were hanging out, he said, oh, by the way, one last thing. I love your earrings. So if you didn't know, I have 17 ear piercings, and typically they're all in my ear at all times. So I think there's 10 and 7 or 9 and 11. I don't know, but I have 17 ear piercings, both ears. And he said, I love your earrings. They're really, really cute. And I'm sure that they feel like they're part of your identity and part of your flavor, right? Like they're part of how you express yourself and how you dress. How long have you had them? I said, well, the majority of them I've had for probably about 20 years. High school and college was basically the time that I completed both ears to what they are today. And he said, it's really interesting. I started working with a shaman many years ago when I started this energy work and this healing work. And I too had a lot of earrings, and my shaman had encouraged me to take some of them out because what his shaman had told him was that the earrings that he had in were actually blocking some of his meridian lines. And so a meridian line in traditional Chinese medicine is an energetic highway in the body. And so we have our chakras, which are sort of energy centers. We have our nervous system, which is the scientific system that we have that runs up and down in our body. And the meridians are supposed to allow the flow of energy, which is known as qi, right? Spelled Qi. Qi, you probably have seen it. And so this energy is supposed to circulate through the body through ways of the meridian lines, and they exist in corresponding pairs. And the meridian lines are what is used during acupuncture. So if you've ever had acupuncture, when they stick tiny little needles into different parts of your body, what they're supposed to be doing, or what is said that they are doing, is they're sticking these tiny little needles into different meridian points. And the reason that they do that is to temporarily open those points up so that you can get the energy to move through those points if it's been stuck, if it's been blocked, or if it's been closed. And so the shaman that had worked with him many years ago told him he was actually doing himself a disservice with some of his piercings, because what was happening was two things. Number one, he was sort of leaving that channel open at all times with the piercing, and simultaneously potentially blocking that channel from allowing energy to flow through it because of the actual metal, like because of the actual piercing. And so he prompted me and encouraged me to possibly take out some of my earrings over, the next few weeks or months or years, however I feel comfortable and called. And he said, take what you want, leave the rest. But I think it could change the way that you feel. I think it could change some of your energy. I think it could change just how you show up in the world. So I took that one with a grain of salt. I will admit I am not ready to take my earrings out because, like he said, they are definitely part of my identity and just the way that I express myself. And I love them, and they've been in for so long. And the irony is, 2 weeks prior, when I had surgery and they were rushing me into the emergency room, they did have me take out all of my earrings, which they always do before surgery. And they give me one of those little urine cups so I can put all my earrings into the cup and I can screw the top, and I can, I gave it to Mike to take home. And post-surgery, I've had multiple surgeries. I always will look in the mirror, and it's like the very first thing that I do as soon as I'm coming to and the anesthesia has worn off, I put my earrings back in because I feel super naked without them. And so the irony of him telling me this when I had just 2 weeks before experienced the nakedness, the vulnerability, and the dislike of how it looks physically was like, okay, thank you for your words of encouragement. Thank you for your idea. I'm not sure that I fully am aligned with that. Fast forward 2 weeks later to the day, I'm in Arizona and have made the move from New Jersey by way of Montana to Arizona. So we had just spent 5 months in New Jersey. We're coming back to Arizona to live here now for good. And so I had been here getting ready for a mastermind that we were hosting for our higher level mastermind clients. We were hosting a retreat, an in-person retreat. And so day 1 of the retreat, we had all these incredible activities. We had breath work, and we were getting the girls ready to dive into all the deep work. And we had our first speakers come on Sunday night, the first day of the retreat. And one of our speakers was Aisha, my girlfriend that I was sharing before. And Aisha has done many different things in her business. She's an incredible person to listen to. Like I said, go follow her episode that she was on. Her most recent iteration of her business is a jewelry line where she has hand designed 14 karat gold and diamond jewelry rings, as well as earrings. So she was coming to speak to our gals about physical products and getting physical products to market and what that looks like and how long it takes, and finding packers and marketers and distributors and wholesalers and all the things tactical. And in addition to her coming and speaking, we said, wouldn't it be cool if you brought a gal who could do piercings and you brought some of your earrings with you, and we opened up a piercing bar. And so the girls could anchor their intentions in, and this new level, this new chapter that they're stepping into with a piercing. And so, of course, your girl who's got 16, 17 earrings was all for getting her ear pierced. But I couldn't help but think the back of my mind was chirping how he had said to me, maybe take some of your earrings out. They could be affecting your meridian lines. But I really wanted a new piercing, and I really wanted to support Aisha and her company, and I really wanted to buy one of her new beautiful diamond earrings. And so I decided to get a piercing. And I was going back and forth between 2 places in my ear, and I'm not 100% sure what they technically would be called, but one of them was in the very center of my ear. I think it's called your conch. Your conch. And the other one would be more towards the top, which traditionally would be called like a cartilage piercing, but it was more on the inside flap of the ear, not quite your dithe, but rook, maybe something up in there. And I went back and forth, and I had 2 dots on my ear because I wasn't sure which one I wanted to do. And I was all set to do the one at the very tippy top. And at the very last second, when she came in with the needle, I decided to change my mind. I said, no, do the other one. So she pierced me, and I got this new earring, and I was excited about it. And I started to feel this weird energy. And I wasn't even thinking about what the guy had told me, the healer had told me. I just felt this weird, anxious energy. An energy I've never felt before, anxious. I don't know. I've never experienced anxiety, but heart racing, sweaty palms, kind of outer body experience, to the point where we had a beautiful plated dinner that night with our incredible chef, and I didn't eat my dinner. I felt almost sick to my stomach from the amount of energy that I had. The type of thing where I just needed to push something or pull something. I wanted to go to the gym and punch a punching bag or push a sled or rep out some pull-ups, but I'm not cleared to work out yet. And so I went home that night and I started to get ready for bed, and I started to feel like I messed up. I felt the anxious feeling that I was feeling, and the energy that I was feeling. I was equating that to I did something wrong. And so I got into a spiral of judging myself, and I couldn't fall asleep, which I'm like head hits the pillow, I fall asleep. I couldn't fall asleep. I was actually crying. And I wasn't crying because of the earring or the placement. I was crying because I felt like I had sabotaged myself, because the physical pain in my abdomen for the past couple of weeks, at that point, it was, 4 weeks. It was so uncomfortable and so painful and so frustrating, and such a nasty reminder of when I would like lean or twist or bend, or my clothing would rub against one of the areas, or a seatbelt. It was a reminder that would kind of catapult me into the emotional side of healing. And so it's like this nasty physical reminder that turns into this emotional spiral for me of everything that I had been feeling and I have been feeling. And so I felt like I almost sabotaged that pain for another pain. And I felt like I did it to myself. I also felt that I didn't listen maybe to my intuition, but I couldn't discern whether my intuition was what this man had said to me or if it was really my intuition. I've always wanted more earrings, but now I had him in my ear saying that, like, maybe you messed up. And then I was worried all night. Was it in a wrong meridian line? And so I kind of was going through this cycle of doubt and uncertainty and pain and sadness. And it sort of all bubbled up again. And I just couldn't fall asleep. So I ended up finally falling asleep, maybe for an hour or two. I woke up at 2:30 in the morning, eyes wide open. I'm talking bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. That was it. I was up from 2:30 in the morning until my alarm was about to go off at 5, and I did not go back asleep. I was energized. I was anxious. I was buzzing. Now, up until this moment, it had been 1 month. It was 4 weeks exactly. Up until this moment, I had been feeling like I was sleepwalking through life, very apathetic, just kind of sleepwalking, just going through the motions. I really wasn't working much during that month. I had given myself space. The team was taking over some projects. We were in between cohorts of our signature program, Empower. And so I had the space. Ironically, the universe has your back. It's like my past self almost knew, and my calendar had been really open. And every time we close out a launch, I always give myself 2 weeks off to just be. So it was like this weird, beautiful, I don't know what the word is, but a not so accidental accident of space that I had. But in that space, because there wasn't necessarily purpose, or obviously I have purpose every day, but there wasn't things on my calendar, I had just been sleepwalking. And so 2:30 in the morning, boom, I wake up, I'm bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. The energy's pulsing through me. I feel like I'm electric. I feel like I'm flying, like literally floating. So I float my way into the mastermind. And now I'm recording this episode. It's a week and a half after that. And it's like through my fingertips, I can actually, like, I feel like I'm an X-Men character. I don't know which one, but it's like, bzzz, like things are coming out through my fingertips. Not to say that I'm super motivated right now or excited about building something new, or I'm on fire making sales. Like I'm just like very awake, more awake than I've ever been. And so what I didn't tell you also was that night, in the middle of the night, I actually tried to take the earring out because I was so upset with myself for doing it. And I was so upset with what I could have maybe just messed up. So I started to unscrew this 5-hour piercing that I had. And of course, I'm bleeding everywhere, and the blood is making me a little bit queasy, which I don't get queasy from blood. I love blood. I wanted to be a surgeon, but I just, like, the whole experience of it was just making me feel queasy. So I'm laying in bed, tossing and turning, right? And so now I have this energy, and I walk into mastermind day 2 with the girls, and it's retreat day 2. And we're doing all the different things that we're doing in the morning. And in the afternoon, I have an incredible guest speaker coming, my mentor, James Wedmore, whom I adore, whom is very spiritual, who's very tapped in, who's very intuitive, and his girlfriend as well. And one of the girls that's on his business team. And she also is super intuitive. And they both have been working with a shaman for years, and not a shaman that you can find on Instagram, like a real true shaman, just an older man who was passed down in his lineage. And so they come in and they know a little bit about my story and what had been going on. So they ask how I'm feeling. And when Jen went to give me a hug, hello, she pressed up against the earring, and it was like, ooh, ow, that hurt, brand new piercing. So I kind of flinched. She said, oh, what's the matter? I said, oh, I got an earring last night. I got a new piercing last night. And I started to say that I was uncertain about the piercing, and I felt like I did the wrong thing. And before I could even say anything, she said, a couple of years ago, my shaman told me to take some of my earrings out. I kid you not. She said they were going through some of my meridian lines and they had been messing with my chi. And so I took some of them out and some of them I didn't take out, but I got the smallest gauge possible of earrings. And if you look at her earrings, they're all very thin and dainty. You could break them just by flicking them. And I was like, that's crazy that you said that, because I had a healer 2 weeks ago who told me the same thing. And then I went and got this earring and I feel like I did something wrong. But I also have this energy that I haven't had. I feel like my eyes are it's like I put the Visine, like clear eye drops in. And for the first time I could see it after a month. And so we started thinking like, wow, maybe I pierced through a good meridian line, like a meridian line that was supposed to open up a channel that had been closed. And so we continue to have this conversation just about a dream that I had the night before as well, which I'm not going to get into today, but James was helping me sort of decipher this dream. And the irony of the whole thing was I had gotten him a gift to say, thank you for coming to speak. And it was a multi-part gift of a couple different things. And one of the things that I got him, which was so random, was a dream decoder box. So kind of like an oracle deck, but it was a box to decode your dreams. And here I was telling him about a dream because he was in the dream, and the dream had so much meaning beyond everything that I'm talking about today. But again, that's an episode for a different day. And so now here we are having this conversation about meridian lines again. And I decide, I'm going to leave this earring in. And if I feel my intuition telling me to take it out, I'll take it out. But otherwise, I'm just going to give it some time. I'm going to leave it in. I'm going to see where it goes. And so here we are today, 10 days after the piercing, 5.5 weeks after the surgery, and all of the things going down, 3 weeks after Montana with the healer. And I'm just moving through everything. So 3 days ago, I went out to dinner with a different group of girlfriends, and I was telling them kind of the story, and they're all spiritual and intuitive, and I figured they would appreciate it. And so my one girlfriend said, well, have you looked to see what meridian line you pierced through? I'm like, no, I haven't, but that's a good idea. So we pulled it up. We're at the restaurant. We pulled up the ear, the chi, the meridian lines, the Chinese acupuncture chart. And all the places on your ear are representative of all the different parts of your body. And it could be anything from like literally your wrist to your spleen, from a kidney to your knee. And of course, the piercing that I got, which remember was the one that I switched at the last minute, is through the abdomen meridian line. Are you kidding me? There's no other part on the ear that could be anything else related to the abdomen. Like it's not like there's like an ovary or a fallopian tube or a uterus. Abdomen is the all-encompassing abdomen. And that is the one that I pierced, the one that I changed at the very last minute, not knowing any of this. But I decided to go from the top of the ear to the middle of the ear for whatever reason, and it is abdomen. Are you kidding? So now I've just been sitting with that and wondering, is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Am I looking to make meaning out of it? Whatever it is, now I'm almost fearful to take the earring out because the energy that I've been feeling the last 10 days has been energy that I haven't felt in a month, but I don't even know if I felt this energy before everything happened. This is a different type of energy. This is just an awareness. Like I'm 150% empath, but I feel like I can almost see through people. Like I can like read minds. I'm more intuitive than I've ever been. I have an awareness around how people are speaking and what they're saying. I have an awareness around other people's energy like I've never had before. There's a creativity inside of me that just is screaming to come out. And it's not necessarily to go create a new offer or start a new project or build a new business, but the desire to finally write the book that I've been wanting to write is deeper than ever. In the last 10 days, I've made 3 different necklaces, and my mom mailed me a bunch of our old beads and chains and stuff that when we used to make necklaces, because I had an accessory line, Glaze Accessories back in the day. It was sold in stores in New York City. And I went to FIT for Fashion Institute of Technology for accessory design. I used to make purses and jewelry, and I haven't done that type of stuff with my hands in a really long time. And in the last 10 days, I've made multiple pieces of jewelry. I've been to the bead store 3 times, the bead and gem store 3 times in the last 10 days. And so I don't want to take this earring out. And the last thing that I just want to share with this sort of episode of this universal, this spirituality, this tapped inness is the irony that the friend who gifted me a healing session that I didn't know that I needed was Aisha. The same friend who brought in the opportunity for me to get my ear pierced through the meridian line of my abdomen was Aisha. And I just don't think that that's by happenstance. I don't think that's by chance. There are other parts of the story that I haven't shared yet with other women in my life that have come into my life because of everything that I've been through. And one of the reasons that I'm so excited to share this story is not to trigger anyone, is not for sympathy, it's not for empathy, it's not for DMs to say, I'm so sorry for what you're going through. It's because I feel like stuff like this isn't talked about enough. And I do feel that it is taboo. And there's so much shame around whether it's having trouble getting pregnant or holding and keeping babies to term, and miscarriages and ectopic pregnancies and IVF. And I don't need to become an advocate. I don't need to pivot my business, but man, I have felt so alone the past month. And the more that I talk about it, the more that I feel it's helping me heal. And I'm very mindful never to share things when there's a scab. I like to wait until there's a scar. But there's also a part of me that the more that I share this, the more that I heal. The more that I share this, the more it makes sense for me. And the more that I share this, the more women and men that I'm meeting in my life who have been through similar things, who are just so appreciative to have someone else just even understand what it feels like to go through something like this. So I put out an email about a week and a half ago, a very cryptic email about what I've been going through, the Instagram versus my reality. And I didn't say what it was, but I explained that I've been going through this dark time and I had this emergency surgery and I'm not quite ready to share and all these different things. And I asked in there if anyone knew anything about human design, if they could relate back to me or confirm or validate that my thoughts here could be true. And my thought here with sharing is that I'm a projector in human design. And so when I think of a projector, I think of back in the day, elementary school in the 80s and 90s, when we had the projector, the overhead projector, where the teacher would use that piece of acetate to show you something on the screen, on the wall, on the white piece of scroll down paper. And as a projector, my understanding is that I project my thoughts and my ideas out into the world. And a lot of times that's through voice. And as a visionary, right, I project them out. I tell my team, I tell other people my crazy, stupid ideas. And then it's for the universe to help conspire so we can co-create together. And so I asked, could it be true that as a projector, it is helping me sort of heal? And so one of the human design experts that's in my world sent me a DM. And she said, as a projector, it can be hard to see yourself clearly. And my undefined throat works better when I speak things out because I allow them to be pulled out of myself. She reminded me of my third line profile, which I don't know all the things about human design, but I have done sessions before. So I have a third line profile of my unconscious body, which means that I will literally bump into things. I will go through physical challenges. I will have pain and sickness and snags related to my physical body. And for me, I learn by trial and error. And as I learn, I share with others. That is how I've run my business for many years. I share what I learn after I've integrated it, after I've understood it, after I've comprehended it. After I learn something, I take it back and I integrate it and I do it and I learn from it. I take the pros and the cons and I take the lessons, and then I'll regurgitate those lessons from lived experience. And so she was sort of confirming with me that, yeah, it makes sense that me sharing about my experience, me sharing about these crazy spiritual things that are happening, maybe they're not crazy at all. It's a way for me to learn, but it's also a way for me to share with others and so that I can teach. And so it is super healthy for any of us to share. And so I just want to thank you for listening to these episodes that could feel triggering, episodes that could feel like, why do I care about this? I want to learn about digital business and marketing and launching. But this is the humanness. This is the humanness of business. This is the 3D side of things. This is the personal development side. This is the emotional intelligence side. And in part 3, I'm going to talk to you a lot about that, the lessons and the emotional intelligence and how we've been running the business with everything we've been going through, and what that means and what that means for you and what I can share with you that could potentially help you, because life will always happen. So whether it's a death in the family or a move across the country or a birth of a baby, whatever it might be, life will always happen. And so it's how we navigate all of that. That is what really matters. And it's hard. And it can feel really lonely. So I hope that these episodes are just a little comfort, a little reminder of all of our humanness, a little understanding as to maybe what's been going on, a little insight or encouragement or inspiration for you to keep going. Not that you have to share everything you're going through, but keep going, but also allow yourself the space to curl up on the couch and watch, 47 episodes of Friends, or cry a lot, because when you keep it in, it turns into dis-ease in the body. Thank you for listening. I love you. I'm so grateful for you. I'm so grateful to have this platform right now where I can share these stories and I can share these experiences, because if it could even just give one person a glimmer of hope, if it could give one person a feeling of I'm not alone, then I know that I've done my job. So as always, if you loved this episode, please feel free to share it out. I always love when you DM me. If you have any questions, I'm an open book. Please feel free to DM me. I am Jessica DeRose. I'm happy to chat about any and all of it. And I just want to shout out my incredible, incredible support system, my incredible group of girlfriends. There have been so many people that have come into my life, come back into my life, and come up in my life just in the last month alone. It's really shown me a lot to be grateful for. And I'm just so lucky for the friends and the family that I do have, and for all of you for being a part of this journey. So as always, cheers to your evolution. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you loved this episode, I invite you to be a part of our ripple effect and share it with a friend. And please, if you feel called, take 30 seconds to leave a 5-star review, and I'll be forever grateful. Until next time, cheers to your evolution.